So we just had about two hours walk around the surroundings that is here in the neighborhood of Prague 9, around a new development that is happening here. It's a former industrial site, and the local civic society organization that is called Rokitka Žije, with Miss Monika Dimitrova, who is here with us. They guided guided us through the location. The rest of our group is around the corner, as there is the simultaneous translation going on. So we are like smaller group here, and we are going to move on with the presentations of few of our partners and friends from the Visegrad countries. And we are going to talk about examples of new developments from other Visegrad countries, about examples of civic initiatives towards affordable housing in those cities, various instruments, how to pursue and push ways of sustainable development of cities and sustainable housing and construction of housing in the cities. So this is what is going to happen now. We are going to have about 10 minutes presentations. Then there will be space for questions that will be directly connected to the contributions of our guests. And then we will have joint discussion on housing and development in our cities. So if everything is okay and clear, we can probably move on. And first we'll present Lydia, if I'm right, from Spolka. Maybe I can introduce Lydia a little bit and Spolka as well. So Spolka is an initiative of architects and sociologists from Košice, but they are active not only in Slovakia, but in Central Europe. And they cooperate with municipalities, mainly Slovakian municipalities, on construction, planning, housing strategies, and stuff like this. So Lydia will present some examples of current Slovak housing developments, and maybe we'll point out some key issues to watch for when it comes to decision making in housing and construction. So Lydia, if you are ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I just switched to data so you could all hear me better. So I hope that works. So hello, currently from Bratislava. And I'm here on behalf of currently 6-member collective of architects and sociologists, as Vasek said. So I will be presenting today the research that we all conducted, and the presentation was prepared by me together with a colleague of mine, Kristina Roman, an architect who also says hi. So let's start with the question that is even posed, and that is, how are we on it with housing in Slovakia? And my presentation today will be in Slovak, written in Slovak, and I will be speaking English, and I hope that this can at least maybe make it even more understandable for everyone. So, Spolka, just very briefly, we started in 2016. We are based mostly in Košice, second biggest city in Slovakia, but we also live in other cities like Bratislava and Berlin. And we tried to engage public in the decision-making process, whether it is on topics of urban planning or housing. And that's why I'm talking here today. So let me make it full screen now. Okay. So housing is our long-term topic. We even published our own research, led a lot of discussions on the topic, and our activities maybe peaked in 2023 when we organized summer school on the topic. This was back in the time when the Russian invasion to Ukraine was at its highest, and Slovakia, as one of the nearest states, received many people running away from war. And the housing very naturally became our main topic. And in the summer school, we delved in the topic how can we deal with housing that is becoming inaccessible in multiple crises, not only war, but also economic crisis, climate crisis. And the beautiful yellow book that we released this year is a collection of texts by various authors from Europe who were part of the summer school in some way. Also, Vasek is one of the co-authors of one of the articles and shared how to approach this topic throughout Europe, since it's not just local problem, but it touches us globally. And the housing is our topic also because we are an NGO and we tried to strengthen the voices of those who are maybe on the periphery of interest or who are not so well present in the mainstream topics. So we took it on our backs to at least make their voices more visible, more louder. And these are, for example, groups who are systematically eluded from processes, like people with low income, young people, elderly people, lonely people, people from Roma communities, etc. Housing in Slovakia is a topic also because I know that you already talked about it maybe, but Slovakia and Czech Republic usually switch each other in a ranking that talks about most inaccessible housing there is. Last No, it was in 2023 we were dethroned as the least affordable country to Czech Republic to buy an average new home. So in Slovakia currently, it's very similar to Czech Republic. You need at least 13 gross annual salaries to buy a new home, which is very bad. And there is also, according to available data, an increasing share of Slovakia's population is regularly facing difficulties in covering housing-related expenses. It was, according to Amnesty International, in 2022, it was more than 16% of the total population that was at risk of poverty or social exclusion. And in Slovakia, households spend on average more than 30% of their total income on housing, which is one of the highest percentages within the Europe. And households with the lowest income spend as much as 50% of their income on housing. The table you're looking at shows how was it with rent. It's in euros. So in the spring 2024, for example, in Bratislava, where I am right now, it was 750 euro for rent to rent to like a 60 square meter flat. So, but you see that in the last column, you see how much it increases every year. So currently we are even more on it. To buy the same flat, it's around 800 or 850. To buy it, for example, 75 square meters flat would be around 950 euro, which is a lot of money for average household. There is finally some data in Slovakia, which was produced by Amnesty International, and they published a research that they did for 2 years on accessible housing in Slovakia. What they found out is also that we have not only social barriers or discriminated practices in Slovakia, but we also have legislation errors, and housing is here not perceived as a basic human right. And with many people homeless, I think the estimate is around 70,000, but not every city is counting people without shelter, so we don't really know how many people are really without a shelter. Uh, Such a right to housing would be good. So let me briefly just summarize what this publication says. So the key findings were insufficient public rental housing capacity. Of course, likewise in the Czech Republic, we only have 1 to 3% public housing left, and the rest is private ownership. The second is restrictive eligibility criteria and lack of individualized support for people to ask for public housing or social housing. They need to have no debts, they need to have a certain amount of money to cover it, and it's pretty restrictive. Another is over-reliance on inadequate social services and untargeted policy. So basically, a lot of social services cover what is needed to be done in housing. Then what is very similar to Czech Republic is also, I think the translation would be merit-based access, that you need to really deserve the housing, that the housing is not just a human right, but in Slovakia, a lot of people operate with deserving housing. Again, then change short-term contracts usually is 1 month contracts that get prolonged every month. And then generational temporary housing when people stuck for generations in inadequate housing. Of course, racial segregation and discriminations are huge problems. And then, of course, absence of data and that NGOs are replacing the state in creating or collecting data like Amnesty International collected or Spolka collected or all the other organizations collected. So, but this all sounds very grave, but I would like to also talk about maybe good practice now and bad practice, just for you to have an image how does it look like. And since I'm now sitting in Bratislava and a lot of projects we did were also here, I will just look around our neighborhood and look here. So a huge, huge, huge asset is local municipal rental agency. To quote the director, Laura Kovacheva, I'm very pleased that together with Bratislava apartment owners, we are transforming rentals into homes. So they are operating really with creating homes, and there are. I know that Prague also has a rental agency, so I'm not sure if this concept is new or old too, but I will introduce it anyway. So this agency is somewhere in between. It connects property owners with households, and it acts like a guarantor of rental agreements. So in one way, it offers the security of safely rented apartments, and on the other hand, it also assumes the risks of subleasing. And Bratislava rental agency already housed 24 households by April 2025. So they are still working on it. So it's total of 88 people, including 47 children, which some may say it's not much, but there are huge differences for the people that are housed. And they also support social inclusion of various groups. They target young families, elderly, low-income individuals, and they are trying to also contribute to community stability of the neighborhoods to improve the housing quality for all. And they also collaborate on various other projects like community housing, or they collaborate with other NGOs. They also offer consulting to other cities who would like to create rental agencies. Another case is community housing in Bratislava. So the community housing is no news. The difference is that Bratislava city wants to find out what forms of community housing would people like to have to include it in the public housing plans. And the goal is to create accessible, lively spots in the city where the communities could form. And the first workshop or like first event for people who would be interested in such housing is this Friday, and I will be there speaking also about our experience with housing. So this is very new for the city. So far, we have no community projects. There is just first one happening in Bratislava, but that are like private individuals that rented a villa near the train station. I think they bought the villa near train station, but that's all. We don't have more community projects, so this is really something new. And then I think the biggest milestone that happened this May was that the city built its own public housing, which is really a milestone because this happened after 15 years. So the capital city currently rents out about 870 apartments with another 1,000 managed by the city borough. So it's around 2,000. Bratislava is 500,000 inhabitants. So May 2025 really marks a historic milestone in the development of rental housing in Bratislava because this is the first one. Its location is in Petržalka district and it's got more than 100 apartments. It's mostly one or three rooms, but the target group are people in housing need and also public service employees like teachers, healthcare workers, municipal police. What's important to say is that they got the funding by a grant from Ministry of Transport because housing does not have a ministry or department in Slovakia. It still belongs under the Ministry of Transport or Ministry of Mobility. So, and then they got a loan from State Housing Development Fund and the city's own resources. So this is a good practice, and but what's more common in Bratislava? Of course, huge development companies that operate here. Based on our research, we put together, let's say, five main ones or five biggest ones. JNT Real Estate, of course, it's based in Bratislava and it's behind huge towers that pass along Donau River. And they can house approximately 1,300 apartments. Then, of course, there is Haberavis. It's also international developer active in Bratislava, but they mainly have office projects like Nivi Tower, which is again in Bratislava downtown. Most of them are in Bratislava downtown. The so far getting bigger and bigger and more metropolitan area near Bratislava bus station. And then there is Penta Real Estate, and this is most famous developer because they built Sky Park in central Bratislava. These are this huge rocket-like tower, but we will get to that. These can house more than 1,000 apartments. And then there are other that don't build so many flats, but it's still around 400 houses, 400 flats. It's Mint Investment and then Fedor's Group, and you have many more. But what's the heck is that this is the highest level of housing, and all the commercials for this are that this is like a new standard of living, the best address, the premium design, the like above standard services, and they are all marking the marking in their speech how premium the new downtown life will be, building by itself a new gentrified quarter of Bratislava with high rises and luxurious, expensive flats. So, this brings me to the conclusion of this 10 minutes presentation, which of course, did miss out a lot because this topic is very complex and can get very deep, but I hope I could give you at least some glimpses that you will then research later or you can ask me about them later. But let me conclude with a satiric video that Capital News put together as a reaction to this new development that is building up fast. The whole one side of the Donau River, planning on extending to the other side of the river. With the author Michaela Prableskova. And then there are important links here, which I can, of course, share. But let's play out the video. So that was all from me. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm here for your questions.
Thank you so much, Lydia. So any questions from the audience? Not just asking. Maybe what is interesting for me, and maybe I can just check then as well, was the prices comparison. You were mentioning this average price in Bratislava. So is this only the case of Bratislava, like the prices, or like comparing? Can you hear me actually? Yeah, okay. Comparing this to other regions in Slovakia, because for example in Prague, and we were talking about this today as well on the wall, they're mentioning some rental fees, rental prices in the new development in the surrounding neighborhood, which is for like similar apartment, is similar maybe slightly higher price. So is this only the case of Bratislava, or we actually see the table, right? So maybe you can comment the table a little bit deeper. Like what is kind of surprising for me that Košice, for example, has maybe even bigger price in 2024 than Bratislava. Is that right? But we can't hear you. You need to unmute.
Yes, thank you. The reason why I placed here this table is exactly to show that this problem is not just about the capital city of Slovakia, that this is about all the cities we have in Slovakia. This just shows the biggest ones. So you can see that Bratislava, Košice, Banská Bystrica, Nitra, Prešov, they almost all go above 600 for a month. But this was in spring 2024. If you could compare it to spring 2025, I believe this would be even much higher, since a lot of people I know, including me, who is living in a flat, our rent was we got we got the rent contract prolonged, but our rent is now plus 200 euro, and I know about many more. So, for example, we pay 850. So I would suppose that this got higher as well. So this table just shows how it increased for all these cities per years with the last data we could collect. And of course, the increase did not stop, it just continues. And the worse it is for Bratislava, Košice, and Trenčín, which is like a few hours from here.
Okay, thanks. Thank you also for those examples with the municipal housing, because we were actually mentioning on the wall that in this neighborhood there were actually no tries at all to construct municipal housing, right? Žádné obecní byty v téhle čtvrti nejsou. Which is maybe not the trend in Prague. There are various locations in Prague where municipal housing is being planned. However, it was not this case. So it's definitely interesting to see that this is happening in Bratislava as well. It's something that within post-socialist cities is slightly changing. Maybe one of my questions, I have two questions right now. First question would be if this is the municipal construction is like concentrated on this like one, as far as I understood it, it was like concentrated land or is it like spread it around Bratislava, the municipal construction? So this is first question, and then second, which is slightly different. You were also mentioning the developers, the biggest developers in the city in Bratislava, and it felt to me, I had the impression that it's mostly like multinational or international companies. In Prague, I have the impression that there is a very significant share of domestic local developers such as Central Group, Sekira Group, Finet. So we have lots of local developers here in this neighborhood. We have seen the development of AFI, right? And AFI Europe. And nevím, jestli AFI je česká nebo so AFE is, as far as I know, is international. Nevertheless, there is a big share of locally based developers. So if you can comment on that as well. So first, the municipal housing
Yes.
strategy and location, and then maybe the nature of the investment and development capital.
Well, regarding the new housing, it's all in one part, Muchovo námestie in Bratislava, so it's localized in one spot, but I know that Bratislava also plans to build another one somewhere else. So now it's centralized, but all the other flats are here and there, so it's not so connected like this one. But they were thinking about keeping a social mix there. That's why combining not just like people who wait for housing, but also like people who work in schools or in other city professions. And regarding the developers, well, that's kind of complicated topic because, for example, JNT, that's a European developer, but its headquarters is now in Bratislava. So it has some local roots, and that's our like biggest developer. So to just partly answer that. But for example, the Mint investment that I mentioned, this is Czech-based developer. So it's a mix, but mostly it's international. What I know that Haberavis, they originally also had headquarters in Slovakia, but they moved and they are international developer.
Okay.
So it's a mix.
Okay, thank you. So maybe we have space for one more brief question.
Maybe we can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. We can see some first project development, which are focused on lower prices of the rent. But what should be, or do you have any example of how to regulate and how to ensure that if the developers start to create such a project, they usually promise to offer a lower price, but at the end, there are already some cases. At the end, the prices are the same as on the market. What do you have any example of how it works? We are just having these questions in our locality because it's starting to come, but we are not sure if the municipality is able to control the price so well that it really works. And if it has really the good level of price at the end, so it really becomes let's say sustainable living or something like available for everyone. Do you have an example?
I totally understand, but unfortunately in Slovakia there is no such example. Actually, developers also complain, not just the city, that there are no clear rules, there is no clear policy how to go around this. So I hope that all our research and data and all this discourse that is slowly changing will cause that Slovakia will create some new housing policy and include there also very clear rules on how to deal and how to communicate and how to create deals with the developers, because I think this is something that both sides want and are prepared to do, but this did not happen yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I just last week we were with Vasek here in Košice. We had a conference on housing for the municipalities where we also invited not only people who work for the municipalities, but local politicians and the developers, and tried to create a dialogue, and both sides expressed this need.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Because of the time, we are just going to move on to next contribution. Thank you so much, Lydia, for your presentation, for your examples. I think it was very interesting in the context that we have seen on the wall. So thank you so much. And we can talk a little bit later if we have more time at the end of the evening. But now let's move on to second contribution, which will be presented by Flora Ziegler and Luca Selesi from ACRED, which is a shorter name for Association of Collaborative Real Estate Development, right? I hope I'm saying it right. And so ACRED is our partner organization from Budapest, who is also part of this Visegrad project we are having recently on housing and housing affordability. And I'm very much looking forward to their contribution because they are going to present examples of the collaborative projects they are running in Budapest, which may show us some interesting new ways how to strive not only for sustainable housing, let's say, but like sustainable ways of usage of houses in general. So I'm very much looking forward to that. So Flora and Luca, you can start.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me all right? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so we represent the Alliance for Collaborative Real Estate Development, and we'll be talking about two of our realized projects, which we consider successful pilot projects in Budapest. And ACRED is a not-for-profit organization that is unique in its approach in Hungary, in that we seek to introduce this form of not-for-profit and community-based urban and real estate development practice. Sorry, there's a car below my window, so I will try to talk over it. And yeah, just to give you some idea of the context of how the idea behind ACRED's inception emerged was pretty much in the aftermath of the 2008-2009 financial crisis, during which Hungary was particularly badly hit. And we have seen an increased or like very accelerated levels of housing insecurity and housing poverty, which affected not only the poorest stratum or strata of society who have already been in precarious conditions ever since the regime change and the large-scale privatization of the housing stock, but also it gave way to a new and like much wider layer of the population experiencing insecurity around housing. And it shed light to a growing need for the emergence of new actors, new institutional actors in the housing sector that can create an alternative, viable and affordable alternative to private home ownership and private rental. And this was sort of a reaction to a long-term tendency, like historical tendency of the central government's abandonment of housing as a policy domain and a general abandonment of the idea that housing is a social necessity and, as Lydia said, a basic right, and not this normalization of the idea that housing is a commodity. And so in 2021, ECROD was established with the joint efforts of 4 different organizations and legal entities that are in one way or another active in the solidarity economy scene of Hungary. One of them is a cooperative called Goya, which is a co-owner and manager of one of our buildings. And then we also saw we were also joined by 3 different think tanks and engaged research institutions and an association for the first rental housing cooperative in Budapest. And so these are the founding members of the Alliance, which is this federation of multiple organizations. And we have 2 different lines of activity. So we not only want to develop, but also manage and maintain the properties that we develop. And the joint purpose of both these activities is to create a form of non-speculative building management and development practice that can ensure that the buildings and the properties that we manage remain affordable over the long run, and they create a sense of security in the tenure of the people who use it, and they keep the prices of the rentals below the market rate, and in this way withdraw permanently or longitudinally the properties from the private market. And because Hungary doesn't have an enabling environment for these not-for-profit or low-profit property development initiatives. I mean, there's a reason why we don't have too many realized projects, and they each have like some peculiarities around how they emerge and how they came to be. But yeah, we would like to show our 2 case studies that we view as successful initiatives that went against the odds of the dominant trends of real estate development in Budapest.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So as Luca mentioned, ACRID currently has 2 up and running projects, but they're different ones. One of them is a residential project, a rental housing cooperative in Budapest, and the other one is a community house for organizations. And this first housing cooperative was purchased in 2018. And initially it was 3 flats that were converted to one big one with a large communal space. And it has 2 floors, 7 rooms, all of them about 25 square meters. It has 2 communal kitchens, 3 bathrooms, a big living room, and a garden. And it currently has 7 tenants for 7 rooms. And luckily, they had a minimum turnover, which means only 3 people moved out in 6 years. And their main goal is to keep the housing affordable. Currently, the rent is 236 euros per month with utilities, which is below market. Yeah, as Lydia also mentioned. And their other project is Kazan Community House, which was also purchased in 2018. That was a lucky year for us. And this house is on an old factory site in Budapest. Altogether, it's 1,200 square meters, and it also has 2 plus some floors. But it's only partially owned by ACRID. The other part is owned by Goya Cooperative. and Acred and Goya co-manages the building. And Kazan Community House is a space for offices for solidarity economy organizations. For example, there's a community finance online newspaper, a community radio, some office spaces for think tanks, two workshops, a ceramics workshop and a textile workshop, and also community daycare. So as you can see, these two projects that we currently manage are a bit different, but they share some main principles that Acred stands by. For example, that both of these buildings are collectively owned and managed. And this is because we want to allow the buildings to be withdrawn from the market, so the projects can be anti-speculation. Both of the projects were hybrid financing, so it was a portfolio between own resources, some bank loans, and also private loans. Both buildings were community renovational, so the community that purchased it with the help of some volunteers really renovated it themselves. Both of these buildings were initiated by democratic grassroots initiatives, and they are all keen on participating in the solidarity economy ecosystem. But the main aspect is still long-term affordability and tenure security, which is, for example, in the case of a residential building, affordability for the tenants, private tenants, and in the case of the community house, it's affordability for the organizations. And we also have some community management principles that are similar in the two projects. Both of the projects have a business plan that creates revenue on an annual level, and that plus money is used for refinancing the loans, which is also a collective responsibility among the tenants. Both of these organizations and buildings are organized and managed based on a residential forum where democratic decisions are made. They both use participatory design, and there are working groups or individuals that are responsible for different management tasks and responsibilities. Both buildings strive to utilize the principles of energy communities, and they try to be circular. And they also strive to be embedded in the neighborhood, so to create a community not just inside of the building, but also outside of it, without gentrifying, of course. We also have a few projects that are in progress that try to utilize the same principle that I've mentioned before. For example, we are in collaboration with a student college, College for Advanced Studies in Social Theory, which is a 40-year-old college in need of new space because of the privatization of universities and the college that they're currently in not being affordable. So this is our main priority right now in the development branch. And also, we have currently looking at this new space under Kazan Community House. So it's directly under it, which is very favorable for us, which is probably available for long-term rental, which we would use to enlarge the community house that we have, because we are always approached by growing need for more social spaces. And long-term rent wasn't among the principles I've mentioned because we prefer property acquisition, but we are still in consultation with the owner of the building, and obviously we would push for property acquisition if he was open to it. And our last project, which is not directly related to housing cooperatives, I mean, it more indirectly, but we are currently developing a training material funded by Erasmus Plus to promote housing cooperatives. And we are currently test teaching these 10 workshops, which is very interesting.
Yeah, and so what we're hoping for is that, I mean, unfortunately, the housing crisis in Europe has got to such severe levels that even on the EU's agenda, the housing crisis has appeared as something that needs to be solved. And I think for a long time, we have not seen this level of interest in housing affordability on supranational levels and even like on national communication. But what we're hoping for is that we can use this momentum to push for large-scale institutional reforms in the housing sector, and that at this point or by this point there are enough grassroots initiatives that have started to organize themselves in a network that they are able to collectively push for more just and inclusive housing solutions. And what we see as one of the most powerful alleyways to achieve this is by creating an umbrella organization that can act as an international vehicle of pushing for not-for-profit and non-speculative real estate development projects. And it feeds from the realization that what we're talking about is not so like these are not isolated issues, and what we're dealing with in the Czech Republic, in Slovakia, in Hungary, well, like it all stems from very similar structural economic positions that our countries are in, and obviously the policies that worsen or mitigate the housing crisis in these countries, they differ in their nature and in their focus, but they are all pretty much private home ownership oriented, and they don't give access to and they don't allow for to build an alternative capacity for social housing, providing social housing, or equipping non-profit organizations to take on the job of providing low profit and affordable housing. And up until now, there has not been like a fundamental paradigm shift in how these real estate development projects are financed. But we think that and we hope that if we keep organizing and like creating an international ecosystem of progressive housing development and management initiatives, then we can ultimately push for financing tools that more adequately respond to the needs of the actors that would like to create the conditions for affordable dwellings. Yes, I think that's it on my part.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just one question. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes, no, maybe, yes, no. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly.
I have the question. Maybe if I understood it, maybe I didn't understand it well, so you will explain it better to me. I imagine this project or this kind of project as a community of people who are then finally living in some house or shared space. Do you have any opinion on what's the, let's say, the best number of people? Not low too much or not high too much when you apply this democratic decision process. If I understood it well, because there are some decisions to be made, and you have to agree on it and you have to find a way how to align within many different opinions. What's the experience? How is it working, and what's the optimal amount of people? I'm a part of such project here in the Czech Republic, not in Prague, and finally it will probably not happen because the people are not able to align. There were too many to collect the right amount of money. You needed too many people to find the common solution. So that's the direction of my question. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So as I mentioned, we only have this one project that is about housing. So, but I can tell you that 7 is an okay amount of people. But it also, I mean, it's also because these group of people were already friends before deciding to move in a shared house. We also had several other groups that approached us, and some of these projects failed because the people were not able to reach a conclusion about whether to purchase a house or not. And some others failed because of the economy, which is even sadder. But I think what we really hope for is that what we created now, these learning material, it can really help the groups that decide that they're interested in shared housing. We can mentor them through the process and enable the learning and the decision-making processes. What I also know is that, for example, in Barcelona, there are shared houses with 70, 80 people. But I don't know how they reach consensus because I guess they must have like a different approach and not the same as with 7 people. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to ask if you know of also some community housing that are not grassroots driven.
Yes, there are several co-housing projects, but they are not necessarily affordable. So what we really want to enable with ACRID is this rental housing cooperative, which is also a form of co-living, but with a strong focus on affordability. But there are many projects in Budapest that enhance co-living, but they're not necessarily about community or affordable, and they are not usually anti-speculation, and they don't have a shared ownership. Yeah, so that's what our projects are kind of unique.
Okay, and anyone else maybe for last question? No. Okay, so thank you so much. I think it was very interesting. Maybe even in comparison to Pragovka, right? The last project we have seen, which is like commercial, private project of huge investment, which offers like spaces to use, which are like completely unaffordable. Actually, like at first we meant to do this workshop at the Pragovka space. However, the price to rent out the space was absolutely unaffordable even for us, for like a professionalized organization. Nevertheless, we have space for the last presentation by Maya. So I hope Maya, you can hear us. If you are
Hi,
there.
yes. Hello, I can hear you. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you great. So let me just introduce you briefly. Maya Zaberzhevska is from the third partner organization of ours, third member of the Visegrad project consortium. And Miasto, jest, naše is activistic movement from Warsaw, which strives for sustainable city They focus also on the decision-making processes at the city hall, housing as well. And Maya is going to present their project of the map of vacant properties and how Miasto jest nasze uses this map to advocate for sustainable and affordable housing in Warsaw. So, Maya, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Just let me know, please, if you can see well the presentation, if it's already visible for you.
Yes, it's great.
Perfect. So first two slides I will skip because there is this short introduction about myself because I'm the member of Miasto jest nasze, the city is ours, and professionally I'm working as investment banking. And shortly, Václav already has told you what is Miasto jest nasze. This is a urban-based movement. We advocate for the transparency, sustainable urban planning, and social justice. And we are trying to combine the activities, the policy making, and the citizens' engagement by focusing on housing, public transport, greener cities, and participating in budgeting of the city. And actually, what is the vacant property map? Because this is generally the map that was created in order to showcase how many vacant buildings that belong to the city there is still unused. And right now, on the map that we have created, we are showing over 300 of empty buildings in Warsaw. And this map was created by activists to show the municipal negligence on the topic of the public housing that are still vacant and could be used. This is made based on the records that are public, that are accessible for everybody, and that the freedom of information requests are open to everybody, and everybody who is using this map can browse it, contribute, and add their own building that they found as empty. If you would go to the website called pustostany.miastoyestnasze.org. Actually, you will see how this map looks like, and even you could check how much from Polish you understand. This could be a nice task for you. So generally, as you can see, this map shows exactly where are the empty flats. Majority of them are in the central districts of Warsaw. I don't know if you can see as well the cursor. I hope that yes. If you would click on any of those dots, you would see the exact description of the house, the information how many empty flats are inside, the information when it was built, when it was abandoned, like generally all the information that people who put this onto the map just added there. Here on the left corner, you can have two messages that we have already prepared that every citizen can send both to the president of the city and to the institute that is governing with those empty vacant houses. On one of the next slides, I will show you more or less how it looks like. And generally, actually, why we decided to make this map, it is because we noticed that there is still over 10,000 of apartments that are vacant in Warsaw. It could give house even to 50,000 citizens. Around 1/3 of them, like around 3,000 of those flats, are actually ready to use. They are in the condition that people could actually move into even tomorrow. But unfortunately, city is not using them. All the others are either abandoned or neglected and becoming a ruin, but still a ruin that could be saved. Most of those flats, as I showed you on the previous slide, are actually in the central districts, which are suffering from gentrification, which are depopulating. Actually, the central district of Warsaw is one where the amount of people who live is the lowest, because majority of those flats turn into short-term renting flats, are owned by the Airbnb owners, or are becoming the part of the gentrification project where they are becoming even not a flat but places used for companies, for small companies like dance studio, Pilates studio, or some photographer studio. So like, the simple jobs that don't require big places, but are mostly located in the city center. And of course, as this data is not proactively used by the city, we decided to use that to show that actually a good use of this data can be done. And how it started, how we started building this map. So first of all, we divided that to districts, to areas, and to conditions. So everybody can search one of based of those searching rules. People can submit photos and give their own updates, so it's not created only by us as activists from Miasto, jest, nasze, but also by every citizen who is willing to contribute to that. And of course, there are also those ready-to-use templates to contact the authorities that I will show you on the next slide. And we generally design that in order to empower residents and to expose the inefficiency of the city, to showcase that actually Warsaw doesn't face the problem of having not enough flats to live in, just there are plenty of flats that are unused. And here on this slide, you can see those two templates. The left one is for the president, and the right one is to the office that is managing the houses that belong to the city. So citizens even don't need to do anything. They just copy paste that and they can send ready emails in order to push the authorities to do something with the empty flats. Residents can use the map to report vacant buildings, to pressure the local officials, and to renovate and allocate them. To organize walks, public meetings, and media coverage inside the buildings. And actually, we already have some positive results because every year, local authorities are ensuring another part of the city budgetings to renovate those buildings and to give them for public housing for people in need. But also, there is a program in Poland that is like gaining on a popularity, which is called Renovation for the Rent program. People who can afford to to renovate the flat on their own are being given the flat for free. They don't need to pay anything. Uh, After they renovate the flat, they can move in, and actually the flat becomes theirs. They are paying very low rent to the city, and the only cost that they had was actually to renovate the flat to the level that will be suitable for them to live in. And people are like fighting for the opportunity to be given this type of flat to, because it's like pretty cheap comparing with the price of flats that are in Warsaw or in any of the other Polish city, because this is actually the program pretty popular in other cities in Poland as well. And actually, why I did propose this program to Wacław to show it to you, because I really believe that you have very similar housing pressure in Prague, the vacancy rate, the renting prices, lack of public housing, and this type of map could also help you to showcase what are the needs of flats in your city and how those unused flats could be finally used, because there are many underused buildings in Prague as well. The law of the freedom of information is exactly the same in Czech as in Poland, because we are basing here on the European Union law, and you have also a strong civil society and the culture, so there is only this tool to be created. If you would be willing to get to know the tool from the technical side even more, I could connect you with the IT specialists who were volunteering for us to do this map, and they could definitely share their knowledge and expertise with you as well. And there are pretty simple steps to create this type of project, this type of map, because it's enough that you start from requesting the data from the city. They are obligated to provide the data to you. You can build a simple open interactive map with the way, similar way that the one that we presented to you, allow users to add their information, their photos and comments regarding the builders. You can provide the email templates to authorities just to help the citizens to contact and to pressure the city even more, and partner with some media and NGOs to amplify the message to make the project widely known by your citizens. And as it is seen in Warsaw, we really believe that an empty building is not a failure, it's actually an opportunity. And the tools that we use in Warsaw prove that there is a possibility to truly use the unused buildings and to release them to the market for the people who really need this type of flats. With pressure, with mobilizing the people and changing the city policy, we are ensuring much and more buildings for people who are working as policemen, as teachers, as doctors, who actually with their salary cannot afford buildings in Warsaw, but they are highly needed also in Warsaw. And this way, they have the possibility to obtain a decent place to live. So actually, this would be shortly everything from me, and I really encourage you to check the project, to follow Miasto jest nasze on our social media, and also to ask the question if you have any.
Any questions? Maybe I would have like a rather sort of reaction because well, what surprised me was this like very high number of unused apartments, municipal apartments in Warsaw, right? It's really huge. So I'm curious how many municipal apartments there are in total actually in Warsaw. And in the Czech case, or at least in the case of Prague, I think that well, in Prague there's about 30,000 municipal apartments in total, and just a couple of thousands of them, like I think it's about 2,000, are like uninhabited, and they are being renovated quite a lot. The pace of the renovation is relatively big. So maybe my question would be like, what is the total number of the municipal apartments? And because then my impression would be that the role of municipal housing has very strong potential in Warsaw if those apartments were actually being used. So maybe just like if you can explain a little bit more the role of municipal housing in Warsaw.
Yes, so actually I'm not able to tell you the exact number, but this is pretty similar to what you have in Prague. So I would say that this is around 30 to 40 thousands of flats, but also the city doesn't own only flats, but also locals and places for the companies to rent. For example, even we as Miasto jest nasze, we are renting an office from the city. So NGOs can also rent a place for their office for very beneficial prices. What is happening is actually plenty of the flats owned by the city right now, plenty of those buildings are being sold to private hands, which we as Miasto jest nasze, we are in opposition to that because we believe that those buildings should be kept in hands of the city and should be released to the market for lifelong rental, I would say, instead of giving that to the market, to the private investors who would speculate on that and increase the price of flats even higher. The second big problem is actually that plenty of those buildings are pretty old. They are either those that were built after the Second World War, so they have already around 60, 70 years, and it is also visible that those were buildings built in rush, sometimes not so safe, so the cost of renovation is pretty high. But on the other hand, there are plenty of buildings that survived the war, that are even from the late 19th century, which actually are located in very good places. So there is a risk that if a city would sell such an old building to a private investor, they, instead of taking care of a building that is actually already like one of the pretty old and secured buildings, they would either destroy that in order to build new one of the new flats that they would earn much more money on that, or simply leave that for the flat just to destroy it itself. So it's pretty often that we see a fire in such a building that happens suddenly, nobody knows where. Exactly last year around the Christmas, the oldest buildings that survived the Second World War from 19th century, one of the oldest rental buildings built by the end of 19th century was simply demolished at night by the developer, and nobody could save that because at the moment when we noticed that the developer already illegally demolished this place, only because it was in the city center, in the place where they could now build a super high skyscraper and sell it for much more than to simply renovate such an old building. So this project is not only for securing housing, but also for securing that those old and valuable buildings will stay on the map of Warsaw.
Maybe I would have another question, which is tied to private housing, because I think in the context of Prague, the bigger problem we are facing is that we have basically no data on private housing, like what is the share of homes that are being used for speculation. So there are basically no data on that. We only have like residual comments of big landlords, big homeowners, developers in the media that are not exact. So maybe this is a question even on all of you, if there are any data available in any of your cities or on countries or on that, because this is something that may give a hint where to focus the policies in terms of maybe regulation of let's say home ownership speculation or speculation with real estate. So, are there any data on private housing in your respective contexts?
Okay, so when it comes to Poland, this is not data that is ready to use where we see that this flat is in private hands and this not. But generally, every building needs to be, every building, every flat, everything that a person owns needs to be registered in special records that actually in Polish are called Księga Wieczysta. And in these records, every flat, every building has its own number. And if you know the number, you can check the whole history of who owned this flat before you, if there was a mortgage loan on the flat, if there is any debt on the flat. So, for example, when you are buying a flat, you can double check that this is paid. So it's not something open for everybody, just that you are searching online, but you need to pay for the access and for being provided this information from the city. But based on this information, you can get to know which of the flat is in private hands, but when it comes to the flats that are in the municipal hands, they are openly known. So based on that, we can know that all the other flats are belonging to private investors or private people. And when it comes to the general amount of buildings in the city. So we have one national office that actually is the National Statistics Office that is called in Polish Główny Urząd Statystyczny. And in this place, you can double check literally everything about the number of the flats, about the number of people who are living in the surrounding, who are registered there. Everything is, of course, based on the GDPR, so there are private data that you will not see, but the general numbers you can access from this office.
Thank you. So, any input from Hungary or Slovakia on data availability?
We, of course, like Maya said, we have the similar thing, but that doesn't tell you really anything about the usage of the flats. And I'm not familiar with anybody who would be actually evaluating such data for further use and for further planning. There's been some attempts by a few cities like Košice, like Prešov, and others who tried to at least find out how it is with like how many flats are vacant. But of course, because of GDPR, you cannot really tell. So they tried to approach energy companies and tried to go around it in this way to see whether each flat has some energy drain. But again, because of GDPR, this was stopped. So no work with data or data collection so far on this topic here.
And maybe for Hungary, I would add that I think the general problem with the private rental sector is that it's so underregulated that it makes it very difficult to track like which apartment is leased for private rental purposes, and while the regulations for short-term rentals are a bit more strict in a way that they require more transparency and more specific certification and authorization to rent or to offer short-term rentals. With respect to long-term rentals, Budapest for sure has a very vast gray economy, and there's a lot of informal leasing or without authorization, which makes it very difficult to have exact data. And I mean, there's obviously a trend of growing rates of private rental, but there are no like national level statistics that are that reflect the true rate of private rentals.
Maybe on a funny note, what helped here with the statistics was a new parking policy. Because everybody who would like to park now in Bratislava needs the permanent residency. So a lot of people who were renting flats now they have to have a official contract, and we did allowance for permit in order to park. So this helped the statistics. I welcome the cat that joined our conversation.
Okay, so we have last 5 minutes. So maybe I will give the space to there's anything in the audience would need to be added. And also, if you might have any questions on anyone else from you, feel free to ask. So maybe like my last question would be. Because for most of the time I'm active in the topic in Prague, I have the impression that the urban movement, and I still consider ourselves as activists, as people who are trying to strive for affordable housing and sustainable life in our cities. I still consider it like rather fragmented. Like there are like small groups who do events here and there, but what we like is like something that would be more massive, more visible. Like comparing ourselves to Berlin and cities like this, and what they were able to achieve in terms of housing is something. It's like completely different universe. So I wanted to ask you, what is your impression? What is your experience? How do you feel? Where do you see potentials? So anyone who feels like starting listen.
From my point of view, the situation in our country is way different, not only because of different historical experiences our countries went through, For example, in comparison to Germany, Slovakia didn't really have strong alternative movement in the 60s. And as well, because of the socialist past and everything, the experience here is a bit different. And what I see are not really like strong grassroots movements, but ways in which NGOs and grassroots and other people in service cooperate with the municipalities or with the state, which is, I would say, some hybrid activity that is not trying to maybe push or oppose or but tries instead to support. So that's what I see so far. But I must say, after talking to all of us from this Visegrad project, Slovakia is a bit behind in creating at least a platform of organizations and NGOs and everybody who works in housing. But we are getting there. So our first step is just to like get to know everybody who works in this topic and connect and create a network in order to like foster this collaboration and support.
Thanks. Anyone else would like to add anything in that?
I would say that it's also very different from the perspective of the city because to organize such movement, for example, in Warsaw, the capital, it's much easier than in smaller cities because everybody from other cities are trying to go to Warsaw for the university, for the job. And when you are new in city, you are also searching for a group of people who would you be able to socialize with, to work on some special projects. So I believe that when you are organizing an urban movement or when you are organizing around any of the topics, it's always good to find people who are simply sometimes looking for just to do something. And especially among young people, you have plenty of them who want to do something, but they don't know how. And by inviting them to join such movement, like for example, Miasto jest nasze, we are giving them the tool, we are giving them the knowledge and the information how to actually work on the topics that are important for them. And one of those are the topics related with the housing.
Okay, thanks. Luca, Flora.
Well, for us, I feel like we have more international partners in housing than we have national ones. And I cannot recall any organization that is rooted in Hungary but not in Budapest. So we definitely have a problem there. We basically, I mean, we only deal with Budapest and the housing crisis there, which is very different from rural areas, but probably very similar to other big cities. So it would be just a step forward to involve other cities and maybe look for other organizations in Hungary, but not in Budapest. But we do have a strong ecosystem in Budapest and also in Central and Eastern Europe with other organizations, for example, MOBA that we mentioned. But yeah, the national level is lacking for us. But Luca, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I just wanted to say that I think I agree with what Lydia said, that I think both like these mid-level actors who are able to work for like the welfare of society and are not for-profit actors, so like municipalities and like umbrella organizations, I feel like their resources and their capacities have been depleted to such an extent that it only makes sense that these actors from the different sectors of not-for-profit activities interconnect. And yeah, I feel like it is a viable sort of way to connect these public and civic initiatives because yeah, otherwise it would just be a lot of small and resource poor entities.
Yeah, but there are good practices for these connections here. But yes, it's like Flora said, they start in the capital city, like in Bratislava, that accepted a new policy. But you have then experts being called into commissions and them really like making the decisions and making the processes better. But here it's more decentralized. So it's okay on this matter. Although we, of course, miss any protest culture, we are building it slowly. But I see here mostly the way of cooperation as the most helpful or capable of moving things forward currently.
Okay. So thank you for being positive for the end, and or slightly, slightly positive. Okay, thank you so much all for your contributions and participation on this event. It's been like a long afternoon for us, but I'm happy we were able to combine all these like various inputs and various examples, various contexts together. So we will stay in touch during our project. We have like one more year going on within this project. There will be a joint output, joint publication with all of those organizations that are present here on the call tonight. There will be more within this project. So for now, I thank you all for taking part and for your presentations, and see you next time. Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank
Saying
you.
hi to Prague.